Hey guys, this is Eric here with Josh and Mallory. How you guys doing today?
I am doing great. How are you guys?
Doing
Good.
great.
I'm doing awesome.
I'm awesome too. You guys had a long power pause because you're so excited.
I was like, I had my thing on mute still, and I was like, Josh can say he's good first.
Yeah. So welcome to the Live the Movie Team weekly Google Hangout team meeting. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are a group that gets together on these Hangouts once a week, and Logan wants to give a speech. So we're a team that is focused on personal development to help each of us be the best version of ourselves, be able to live the life of our dreams and make a difference. And we came up with the theme of Live the Movie is that, anytime you see a story-based movie or you read a book that's based on a story, there's these common themes in those stories is that there's usually a main character, or maybe there's a group of characters, but usually there's a main character that has some goal or ambition or maybe something's gone wrong in their life, and they think if they achieve this a certain goal or things go a certain way, then they will get something that they're after. They think they'll either be worthy as a person or they'll be important or whatever it is, and they set out in that pursuit across the course of the movie or the story, and usually at some point they get really close to it or they have it for a period of time, whatever it is, and then they get knocked down and it either goes away. If it's a relationship, they had the boyfriend, girlfriend, then they something happens, they break up. If it's the superhero over the villain, they think they defeated the villain and the villain does something to take them down. Whatever the story is, the sports team was winning and now they're losing. And what ends up happening usually in those movies and stories is that the main character or group of characters, maybe it's a team, they have to look inside of themselves and say, what are we really after and what are we willing to do to get there? And not be so much attached to the outcome, but controlling what they can control to be able to get there. And ultimately, in most of those movies, unless it's a tragedy, they end up achieving their goal, but it wasn't the goal that ended up making them happy or fulfilled or felt important. It was who they became in that process. And our group's all about pushing you when things are going well, keep it going. And when you're being challenged, seeing it as part of your movie in that spot that, that you can get through it and ultimately still achieve your goal or whatever your goal is. Even if you don't achieve it, you get a lot farther than you would without having the goal, but it's more about who you become and who you contribute to and the difference that you make. So there's a couple ways that our group actually achieves this outcome that our group is based on. The first thing that we do is every 3 or 4 months our group gets together and we hold what's called a mastermind, which is very similar to what we do here in this hour, but we do it for about over the course of 3 days. Usually it's one night the first day, a full day the next day, and a morning the third day. And we condense in about 48 hours to learn as much as we possibly can and relearn things at a deeper level. And then we also have some fun because nothing will replace the in-person interactions. These Hangouts are awesome. I look forward to them every week, but I also look forward to the masterminds because we can laugh and have fun and feel the energy of each person that's in the group. And, obviously we do it at different places, which is fun as well. And then as far as our group, we each picked a goal that we wanted to hit in the next 12 months. And we each keep each other on track with that through these calls and updates on our goals. And then, another thing that we do is we have these Hangouts. And what we actually utilize them for is to talk indirectly about our goals by talking about the personal development topics that we all have learned and continue to learn. And the way to keep it fresh, so it's not the exact same thing that we're always talking about, but it is the same principles, is that each month we read a different book that is based on personal development. The topic could be different. It could be finances, it could be success, it could be leadership, it could be spirituality, but it's all based on personal development. And what that means is it's all based on what do you do with the information to be able to, achieve what you want and make a difference. So, Logan's making all kinds of faces over here, which is really funny. So Mallory was actually in charge of our book for this month, and she's had us do some pretty cool exercises and she's got the book right in front of her. So I'll actually let her take it away with what the book is and what it's about, and some of the things that she's learned through reading this week. And obviously, I'm sure there'll be some cool stuff that we can each discuss. So, to you, Mal.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Eric. One other thing I just love about the group is that, it's not like a high pressure, like you have to do certain things every week. It's more, what an accountability group is great for is just to keep things on your mind enough so that you actually get things done, and goals that you set, you actually get that stuff done, versus having it just kind of be this wishy-washy dream that you have for yourself. And Logan is just entertaining us tonight, which I love. But tonight, the book in general is called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, and it's basically 21 ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time. And what I've learned from the book so far is that, the concept of Eat That Frog is to basically pick your most challenging, or not even sometimes most challenging, but most important task, either in a day or in an hour, and just get that thing done first, because you'll have this new sense of accomplishment, and you'll get the other things done a lot faster. So he goes into a little bit more detail about, in his 21 steps, he goes into more detail about different techniques you can use. Like we started off the first call that we had, we talked about creating a list of 10 things that you want to achieve in the next year, and then really honing in on the top 3 things that would make the most impact on your life. So it could be work related, it could be health related, personal relationship related, it could be any related to any area of life that you want to improve. And the cool part is, what I've learned this week specifically is that Logan, you look so sad. What I've learned this week, though, is just that being really clear on what your goal is sometimes means that you have to give up doing something that you're doing currently to be able to accomplish something new. So a lot of times we think we can just add more things to our plate, or have the capacity to add more things to our plate, and that's how we achieve more. But in reality, we always will have the same amount of time to do things. And what it comes down to, really, to avoid the procrastination and to accomplish big things, is to decide what you want to do and look at what you're currently doing and say, okay, is what I really want to do, is what I'm currently doing helping me get to that point? If it's not, you might have to delegate that thing to somebody else, or just completely eliminate it from what you're doing. So one of the things that I tend to do more of than I should is just watch TV. I have a lot of TV shows that I like. They're fun to watch, and I enjoy them, and I would miss them if I didn't watch them, but they wouldn't impact my future in the long term. If I switched out 1 or 2 of those show times, that I watch typically every week, for doing something else, like reading or working on something on my to-do list that really, would have an impact on something that I want to achieve long term, it would make a huge difference. And sometimes all it takes is us to really clarify what we want, and then look at how our life really is currently, like our current reality, and say, okay, what things can I change? What type of activities can I replace with other activities? Working out is a great example. Like, if you hear people say, oh, I don't have time to work out. Well, that's just a bogus excuse, because important to them. So if you really wanted to work out, you would eliminate something else. Like one of my shows, I could just eliminate and use that for workout time if that was the case with me. So it just takes some clarification in your life to be able to hone in on what activities are really going to make the biggest impact. Josh, I saw you unmute yourself. Did you have something already to say?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because obviously Brian does talk a lot about giving up things in the book, and it's funny because I tend to have this kind of, I don't know, I feel like over the last couple of years I've had this kind of tendency not to want to do things that would get me to that goal, and instead just do fun things. But the thing that you obviously need to realize is that, while the fun things are great and they can be hard to give up sometimes, it's the more important things that need to get done in order to bring you more lasting happiness. And so if you can see, if you can kind of see the end and see what you would get as far as the lasting happiness would be, and compare that side by side to what you would want to do in the short term, most often you probably end up going for the thing that isn't so pleasant right now, but would be in the future. So
that's such an awesome point. It's funny because I literally have my book, Josh, open to a page that has the rule says, it's so funny that you just said this, long-term thinking improves short-term decision-making. So if you really think about the long-term goals that you have that you want to achieve, that will impact your short-term decisions that you make. You won't go after the things that are going to give you only short-term gratification with no long-term effects. You're going to start going after things and doing things that will make a real difference for your long-term. So that's so awesome that you just brought that up, Josh. Eric, did you have something?
Yeah, I think this goes back to one of the things that I've mentioned before. And for those of you who haven't been on our Hangout before, I talk a lot about Tony Robbins because I've learned a lot from him, and a lot of the other teachers like Brian are great. But I think the person I've learned, the person who relates that I'm most able to relate to in terms of just the way he teaches is Tony Robbins. And one of the things that he talks about is that you got to actually picture in your mind that with which you're waiting for in the future, right? So if you talk to someone and they are not wanting to do the thing, they're not wanting to do the thing that would benefit, that they do now that would benefit them for the future.
I know you're not happy.
They probably, if you probably ask them to picture it in their head, they will picture it as like, let's say you wanted to save up to buy your dream house or something, right? And somebody's not happy. You wanted to save up to buy your dream house, right? But you thought it was like out of reach, or you didn't want to put in the work to do it. When you picture it, you'd probably picture it like you looking at the house and maybe looking at it at a distance, versus saying to yourself, like, picturing yourself in the house and picturing yourself in your bedroom. What would that look like? What are the pictures on the wall? What are the, one of the reasons people say to visualize is so that you can attract exactly what you want, because you'll go towards what you're seeing. But the other part of it is if you don't actually picture yourself in it, regardless of what it is, then you're not going to move towards it. Because if you think about it, if something's real life, if you see yourself on stage giving a speech or singing, if you want to be a singer, then you already picture yourself in front of the crowd. But if you actually are like, oh, I'd love to be a singer, but instead you picture yourself in the last row watching yourself singing, that's not the same thing, and it doesn't give you that same level of energy and motivation. So Josh brings up a really great point, and like I've said on previous calls, one of the reasons Tony's able to work with all different people, whether it's politicians or athletes or all this stuff, it's like, well, he's not a politician, he's not a star athlete, how does he get to do it? Is a lot of times what he's actually doing is say, okay, look, you know in your heart what you're doing when you're at your best. If he's working with the tennis player, what is your stroke like? What are you thinking about? What are you picturing in your mind? And then just creating that rhythm over and over and over to get them back into that state, because they have the ability. It's just a matter of getting back to that place. So I just thought that was a good add-in to what Josh had to say.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because a lot of the times, like you said, when we think of this long-term goal that we might have for ourselves, sometimes we do distance ourselves from that goal instead of really imagining ourselves and what our life would be like if we did accomplish that. So it's kind of funny how just a simple mind shift can start changing the things that you decide to do on a day-to-day basis now to really impact that future. So that's awesome. One of the chapters that I read this week was about the 80-20 rule, and that just says 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. So for example, if you have a list of 10 things that you want to, of tasks that you want to achieve, chances are, based on that 80-20 rule, one of those tasks will make more of an impact on your future than all other nine of the other tasks on that list combined. So when you think about that, and if you have a list of 10 things and you're like, okay, I want to get all these 10 things done, and then you pick the one that's going to have the most impact than the other 9 combined, that's your frog. That's what you want to accomplish first. That's the one that's going to give you motivation and inspiration and continue yourself moving forward. And chances are some of those other tasks that you have on your list are just busy work, and they might even be able to be eliminated altogether. So it's kind of cool when you think about that. If you did those tasks first, those ones that you don't even really have to do to make an impact, that's when you can start procrastinating. That's when you can get bogged down by the short term. So it's so important to clarify what your frog is so that you can get that done, eat that frog, your biggest, most ugly frog on your list, to make the most impact on your future. And they're oftentimes, your frog is the most valuable tasks are often the hardest and most complex. So when you think about that, why would you want to put them off? When you think about doing something complex and hard, why not get it done right away? And if you don't know how to get it done, learn. Find a way to get it done so that you can start heading in the direction that you want to go. The rule in chapter 3 about the 80-20 rule, it says resist the temptation to clear up small things first, which I kind of just talked about. Don't do that busy work first because it doesn't help you get anywhere, and it just makes you busy instead of really accomplishing things. Thinking about starting and finishing an important task motivates you and helps you overcome procrastination. This is kind of what Eric was talking about with visualizing yourself. Say you want to buy your dream home. Do you think about it as, you're looking at it from a really far distance? It's like, oh, I really wish I could live in that house. That's my dream house. Or do you actually picture yourself, going through the process of putting a down payment on the house, signing the papers, moving in, like the move-in day, like imagining yourself moving stuff in and being able to decorate the house the way you want it, and what would your kitchen look like, what would your bedroom look like, what would it feel like to be in your house when you have guests over, things like that. When you start thinking about those things, that helps overcome procrastination because it's a way to motivate yourself to want to get those things done. Chapter 4, I already read the rule in chapter 4, which chapter 4 goes over, consider the consequences. So this talks a lot about when you have a long-term focus, what are the decisions that you would make versus having a short-term focus. One of the other rules is future intent influences and often determines present actions. And consequences aren't just things like what would happen if I didn't do this task, but it's also what would happen if I actually did this task. So it can be, in a work situation, like, for example, if you didn't do a report that you were supposed to get in for like a board meeting or something. This is an example from the book. What is the consequence of not getting that report done? And then what if you did do it? Like, what are the consequences of you getting this report done? Okay, it's going to take a little bit of time to compile the data for the report, and you're going to have to put the effort in. But the consequence of getting it done versus not getting it done, it just outweighs it. So it makes sense to think about the consequence of the task of getting it done and versus not getting it done. There's another section. It says obey the law of forced efficiency. There's never enough time to do everything, but there's always enough time to do the most important thing. And this is what I was talking about when I said, giving up things. Sometimes you have to give up things that you do on a day-to-day basis and replace them with things that are going to relate to and help you to achieve a long-term goal that you have set for yourself. There will never be enough time to do everything you have to do. You always are given, every day that you wake up, you have the same amount of time that everyone else has. So when you say, I want to do more, I want to read more, I want to do more, well, do you really want to do more? Because you probably already have a packed life. Like, you probably already do a lot. So changing that idea of doing more to what can I do that's going to have the most impact on my day. That's what you really want to focus on. And this other part that I like about this chapter is the 3 questions for maximum productivity. First question is, what are my highest value activities? Basically, what are the activities that are going to make the greatest contribution to your work or your family or life in general? Second question, what can I and only I do, if done well, will make a real difference? So this question kind of relates to what's something that only you would be able to do that would make an impact. Like, it's not something you can delegate to somebody else because it just wouldn't get done. Working out is a great example. You can't delegate somebody to work out for you. You have to do it yourself in order to make an impact. Number third question. Third question, what is the most valuable use of my time right now at this moment? What can I be doing that's going to make the biggest impact? Josh, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that you say, you know, sometimes people will ask themselves, what more can I do, or I want to do more, like that sort of thing. What they should probably be asking instead is, what is more important that I can do? So yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, it's good to touch on that again, because I think so much, you know, we can get a lot done in a day, and if we really broke down like how much we got done in a day and how much it impacted our short-term versus our long-term goals, or like short-term gratification versus the actual long-term goals that we have, we'd probably be surprised at how little we get done. So it really is important to distinguish and determine, like, what am I doing throughout the day that can make the most impact on my future, because that, you know, you can't change the past. You can only do something now to affect the future. So you might as well just focus your energy on the present moment and ask yourself, what can I be doing right now that will make the most and biggest impact? Because that's what's going to make the most and biggest impact on your future. It's really that simple. The next chapter reviews creative procrastination. And I really like this concept because it goes back to, you know, starting to eliminate things that aren't going to really make a big difference in your future. And you know, it's okay to watch the TV show every now and then, or just do something for fun and not for any gain in the future, because it's important for our minds to work creatively through those things. But it's also important to keep in mind of how much time we're spending on each of those things, and how, you know, what types of things are you typically procrastinating in your life. One of the big things that I had to learn the hard way was learning how to say no to people. I remember when I was working for Cutco, this was probably back in 2009 or 10, so 7 or 8 years ago. I had a meeting with the region manager, so it was Rick Castro at the time, and he was a bigwig. He was a big deal. He was my boss's boss's boss at the time, and I had a meeting with him, and I was very overwhelmed in the work that I was doing for the company at the time, and I was just struggling to figure out what I was doing that, you know, was making me feel so overwhelmed. And, you know, it wasn't even just with work, it was just with, like, everything that was going on in my life. You know, I wanted to spend more time with family, I wanted to earn more money, and I wanted to make a bigger difference in the office that I was working for. All these things. And we sat down, and after just 2 minutes of sitting down with me, Rick says, "You don't know how to say no to people." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Say no to me right now." And I was like, "I don't want to." And he's like, "Exactly, you have to learn how to say no." So we literally sat there and said, "Say no to me." And I said no to him until I was finally screaming, like, "No." And he's like, "Well, it makes sense for you to be able to say no, because you can't do everything. Like, if you have, say somebody asked you to go to a party and you already are going to another party that same time, same day, you have to say no to one of them. Saying maybe is kind of like a yes. You might as well just say no. So saying no is a really important concept to learn, because your time is valuable. And if you don't learn how to say no often and and early. You know, sometimes I put off saying no, even though I know in advance I'm not going to be able to do something. Sometimes I'll put that off, but that only adds stress to me and unnecessary anticipation of a yes coming from the other person too. So it's just so important to spend your time doing things that are actually important to you. And it's okay to say no. People would rather you say no right away instead of saying maybe, because maybe in their mind still might mean yes. Even though you know in the back of your mind you really needed to say no in the beginning, if you eventually say no and don't follow through, that's as if you said yes and then no if you said maybe, if that makes any sense. So it's just, you know, it's so important for your sanity, for my sanity at the time. It made a huge difference. Like I can remember just an instant shift in my mental, you know, clarity of like, okay, my time is valuable. I can say no to people and they're not going to get offended. People are okay with it. You can say no in a really polite way. Like, hey, you invited me to this. I really, really wish I could. Unfortunately, I can't. I already have something else planned. Maybe next time. So it's just, you know, it's your attitude towards saying no that can make a big difference in how you spend your time and how you feel about how you spend your time. And you always want to feel good about, you know, the things that you're doing at the moment and how they're impacting your future. And that's what one of the things Brian Tracy says is you can get your time and your life under control only to the degree to which you discontinue lower value activities. I'll say that again. That's exactly what we've been talking about. You can get your time and your life under control only to the degree to which you discontinue lower value activities. So the activities that are not bringing you any value or very low amount of value to your life, you just have to discontinue those activities. And it takes some time. It takes practice. It takes consistency and persistency, because you're not going to be able to just completely shift everything that you do in your life overnight. It's just really, really hard to do that. You probably end up going back and, you know, it's like changing your diet overnight to a whole new diet. 3 days later, you're craving this one thing that you used to allow yourself to eat. And you eat it because you can't handle the pressure of like eating healthy all the time. And then all of a sudden you go back to your old ways. So it's just one step at a time, one small piece at a time to put together that life puzzle. Oh, that was one of our other books, The Life Puzzle. To have it make sense for you and what your goals are. One of the other things that I highlighted is for you to do something new. This is all that I've talked about so far. For you to do something new, you must complete or stop doing something old. Getting in requires getting out. Picking up means putting down. Creative procrastination is the act of thoughtfully and deliberately deciding upon the exact things you're going to do right now, or you're not going to do right now, if ever. I said that wrong. Creative procrastination is the act of thoughtfully and deliberately deciding upon the exact things you are not going to do right now, if ever. So yeah, it would be nice to watch that TV show because it's one of my favorite shows. I could do that now, or I could just put that off. That's something that you can procrastinate. It's okay to procrastinate watching a TV show. With DVR these days, you could watch it 10 years from now and you wouldn't have missed anything. So, oh, hey, Logan wants to say something. He's happy now.
I changed his diaper.
That's all it was. Oh,
what I was going to say is there's also, you know, this is one of the reasons why I like value clarification, like being very clear on what your values are, because then if someone presents you with a big scale opportunity, you know whether it fits in or not. So then you can make those decisions easier. And even small things like, you know, Mallory doesn't have to give up her shows, but it's like one of those things where I have about 3 or 4 TV shows that I watch. It doesn't include sports, but I usually watch sports like late at night or on the weekends or whatever. But I have 3 or 4 TV shows that I watch. Same reason everyone watches whatever shows they watch, reality, comedy shows. Mine are usually like action or political dramas, and it doesn't really seem like it would be something I'm interested in, but it's just mindless stuff to like de-stress and just something else to focus on. And get caught up in the story of what's happening or whatever. But for me, I never watch the shows when they're on. I actually, most of the time, I'll watch them when I can go. If it's a day where I'm inside and I go running like on a treadmill or something, I'll just put the show on. So I literally will be doing something that I would do anyway. And so I'm literally taking no other time to watch my show because I'm already running. So, if you have a treadmill or something at your house, you have weights in a room with the TV, or if you go to a gym that has has TVs there, or you, well, I can't exactly record your shows necessarily and watch it at the gym, but because they might not have your show on. But again, the whole concept of your TV time or whatever, and that's kind of the thing is, can you do some of those things? And even in reverse of that, you think about some of the things we're doing with our group and you say, well, I don't know if I have a ton of time to be reading a book or something. A lot of the books that we read are on, audio book. Do you have a commute to work each day? Can you listen to it in the car? Can you listen to it on the train? This will sound insane to you guys because you guys know I've read a book a week for a year a couple times. My brother's already read 50 books this year, and he's also watched over 50 movies, which is not a goal of his. It's just to show you that if you plan things in, there's time. You say, how in the world could he possibly read 50 books in 3 months? That's literally like a book every 2 days. How does that make any sense? Well, he's got a 40-minute commute to work each day. He signed up for Audibles, which is how you can listen to books. So he's got an hour and 20 minutes of reading every single day. Anytime he drives in the car, he doesn't listen to the radio. He listens to the books. And then he spends his weekends, he goes out and stuff, but usually during the day, he either spends his time watching movies or reading books. And he's very deliberate with it. It's like, I want to watch these movies. I'm going to watch these movies. I'm reading. And, again, you think it's insane. And you say, if you read 50 books in 100 days, you got to have no time on your hands. He goes out every weekend, at least once, maybe twice. He comes over and hangs out with us for a whole day on Sunday usually. It's just a matter of what your priorities. You didn't hear me say he does 20 different things, right? Goes to the gym, he reads, and he watches movies. But those are the things that he likes to do, and he prioritizes, and that's how you can end up, doing some of those different things. So it really does come down to value clarification, which Logan's is food, sleep, clean diaper, flirting with the waitresses at restaurants.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. Is not necessarily having to give up things that you really love, but just adding something to that thing, that you were able to do at the same time. That's such a good point, because so many people think, oh, well, I really would love to live that type of lifestyle, and I value those things, but I don't know if I could give up all of this other stuff that I do. And that is where you really have to look at your values and say, okay, what can I do kind of at the same time that I do something else to combine it, and to get me closer to that lifestyle that I really, really want to live and that I desire. So that's such a great point, Eric. The last part that I'll go through is, because I've kind of thrown a lot of information at you guys tonight, but the last part is using the ABCDE method. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this method before. It's really cool. You basically look at your to-do list, or either your master to-do list that we talked about last week, or just like a daily to-do list. And the first thing you do is you mark off anything with an A that is something that is very important, you must do, and only you can do. And if you have a couple different A tasks, you want to list them in order of priority from there. So like A1, A2, A3. When I was reading this book, I was thinking of A1 steak sauce, and it made me really want a steak. But that's probably part of the pregnancy too. But you want to list your A tasks first. Those are things that must get done in order for you to get closer to a goal, or just to be able to, work effectively at work, things like that. Your B tasks that you want to put a B next to are the things that you should do, but they only have really kind of mild consequences for not doing them right away. So for me at work, I enter these candidate files, we call them, where after somebody comes in and interviews with our company, all the information from the interview gets put into their file and stored in an electronic database. So one of my tasks on a daily basis is to enter those files. Another task that I have every day is reporting in the morning first thing. If I didn't do that reporting and get those numbers in that report to the appropriate people at the time that they need to be there, it would have major consequences. That's an A task for me, is getting those reports in. Probably a B task, not probably, definitely a B task is those candidate files, because A, they've already interviewed, B, all that information is already in the system, but basically what I do is just complete the process of getting all the final details in from the interview and scanning it in electronically. That can wait 2 or 3 days, from the time that candidate initially interviews. So if I have a choice between doing a report that needs to be in by a certain time or entering a candidate file, I'm obviously choosing the report to do, because that's an A task. That's a simple example. A C task is defined as something that would be nice to do, but for which there are no consequences at all. One of my biggest C tasks at work is organizing the supply closet. It doesn't really matter that much on the productivity of the business and getting all my stuff done to have an organized supply closet so that I didn't have to go in there. Whenever somebody needs something, they're like, "Hey, Mal, do you know where this is?" And I do, because I know where I've been in there so many times looking for things that quiet down or slow down? Are you telling me to do something, Eric?
No.
Oh, you're banging up. He's giggling. So I've been in that supply closet so many times that I know where everything is, even though it's not in an organized fashion. But whenever somebody's like, "I'm looking for this and I can't find it," I'm like, I go right in there and find it. So that's something to avoid having to go in there anytime anyone needs anything. It would be nice to have done and have an organized closet so that everyone in the office can kind of find things easily. But it's not something that I'm going to, spend time doing if I have reports to put in or candidate files to enter, things like that. A D task is defined as something you can delegate to someone else. So, and this is kind of cool that they have ABC is pretty easy to remember, like A tasks I must get done, B tasks I should get done, C tasks it would be nice to get done. D stands for delegate. You can get rid of some of those tasks on your to-do list if you can just simply delegate them. Sometimes I feel like if I have a to-do list, that if there is something I can delegate, it's like, no, I don't want to bother anybody, I'm just going to do it myself. But the time that it takes me to do something sometimes, to do that one thing that I could have delegated, is such a waste of my time and my efforts and my energy, because if somebody else could do it, just have somebody else do it. Like, it just doesn't make sense for you to put all that pressure on yourself. I tend to do that a little bit too much in my work life. Task and E task, the last of the A, B, C, D, E, is one that you can eliminate altogether, and it won't make any real difference. So try to think of one at my office. If I eliminated, I can't think of it right now. It might even just be organizing that closet would be it, and eliminate it altogether, because the other receptionist and I have been wanting to organize this closet since I started. We haven't done it, so I guess it wouldn't make that big of a difference if it never got done. But it's staying in my C list tasks for now. The last thing in this chapter that I'll go over is just about taking action immediately. If you want to make a change in your life, the only way it's going to happen is if you actually take action on those things that will change it. Because, if you don't, it just keeps getting put off till tomorrow. You will never get to tomorrow. There is only today. You can say you'll do something tomorrow, that's fine. And if you have it listed on a list that you actually are going to get done tomorrow and not keep saying tomorrow about that certain task, it's good. But, you know, get done today what you could get done tomorrow, because that'll put you in a position to succeed at a much higher level in the long term than if you just keep putting things off. So, you know, the thing about procrastination that I've learned about, especially from this book, is just that it's okay to say no. It's okay to make a list of things that are important with your values and give up other things that aren't as important to you. Creatively procrastinate things that don't necessarily have any consequence if you do or don't do them, and just take action on things that you really want to accomplish. And you know, eat the frog. You know, get the most important task and the hardest task done at the beginning of your day. You'll feel more accomplished, and you'll start getting more done. Procrastination won't be a habit for you. That's all the thoughts I have.
I was just going to add that a lot of times people, basically the concept of the whole book, people talk about what they have to do instead of an outcome. I'll give you 2 quick examples, and everyone should be able to relate to one or the other very easily. One is, let's say you're someone who works at a store, right? And one of the tasks that you have is to restock the shelves of, let's say you work at like a shoe store or something, right? And there's some open spots in the store, and you have some shoes. There's shoes there that are seen. So if somebody comes in and wants to buy them, but you have more of the same type of shoe, and you got to restock the shelves. Now there's no one in the store, so you say, great, this is awesome. I have time to restock the shelves. Then few people start to wander in, and you say, oh crap, like I have to wait to put this off. Like I really got to restock these shelves. Not realizing that the only reason you have stocks to reshelve is because people bought your shoes. Therefore, you should be talking to the customers about buying more shoes and, you know, refilling the shoes later. Now, myself, Mallory, and Josh each worked for that sales company that we're always talking about, Cutco and Vector Marketing. And we each ran an office at one point, and it was a recruiting office. So we were constantly trying to get candidates in the office to interview to see if they were the right fit to go through training and sell our products. Occasionally, there would be a time where there would be a lot going on, and then all of a sudden it would kind of dry up. So let's say we were supposed to have a bunch of people come in for an interview one day, and nobody showed up. So now we have some more time. So you say, okay, great. Well, I can, pay the receptionist, and I can clean the office, and I can do all these things. It's like, well, I can, I can pay the sales reps and do all these other things that you do have to do at some point. But how you got so busy is the fact that you were doing what you're supposed to do, recruiting people. So if no one came in today and you don't have a lot of people scheduled for tomorrow, who cares if your office is a mess? Who cares if, there's these other things to do? So knowing that your outcome is to get people in the office so that they can interview, so you can get sales reps to build your team. And the same thing if you work at a store, the outcome is to help customers get what they want. But if you're too focused on just doing things, then you'll get stressed out because you say, well, I have to talk to the customers, but I also have to stock these shelves. My office is a mess. I have to pay the receptionist. I have to do this. I have to call the sales reps, and I have to make sure that there's people coming in for the interview. But if you know what your priorities are and what your values are, not just in a job situation, but in life, it becomes a lot easier to make a decision. And like Mallory said, if you get in the habit of saying yes and no instead of maybe, and knowing based on your values, what those decisions are, then your life, really goes to the next level. So that's all I have for tonight.
Cool.
Josh?
I think I kind of made lists before, but I don't think I've really like what do I need to do every day? And so I guess I just sure if I'm planning out the right things to do or not. How do you guys go about figuring out like what's important to you guys? Important tasks to get done each day.
Well, I think starting, if I understand your question correctly, because you're breaking up a little bit, but to just kind of distinguish what are the most important tasks to get done is kind of like what Eric just said, is looking at what outcome do you want to achieve for, running a sales office. The outcome is to make sales. That's the success of the business. So what leads up to that is you kind of work backwards. So what leads up to that is more sales reps on the team. What leads up to more sales reps is recruiting more people, having more people in the interviews. What leads up to that is advertising for those interviews in different areas. So you kind of work your way backwards, and then that can determine, okay, what can I do today to impact that next important thing, which will impact that next important thing, which will impact the next thing, and so on. So does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So any goal that you have, like for you, Josh, getting a job, obviously you want to be at interviews, what tasks do you do to be in front of somebody interviewing is submitting your application. What do you have to do to submit your application? Find somewhere to submit your application, you're searching for the jobs. And then as far as like moving down to Tennessee, it's Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving down there is the outcome. You would have to find a way to get your stuff down there, the stuff that you have that you want to get down there, finding a place to live when you get down there. So you can kind of work your way backwards to think about, okay, what are the most important things that I have to get done today to lead me to those next levels of actually eventually getting down to Tennessee?
Okay.
So that's a great question. I think
Got it.
I've been talking about, let's do this, but if you don't really know how to go about making a list and actually prioritizing those things, then that's great to clarify. That's all I really have. I mean, it's the last Monday of the month. I cannot believe March flew by as fast as it did, but that's sometimes how time goes when you have a lot going on. But do we want to pick another book on the next call, or how do you guys want to go about it? I know I didn't even get through like all the chapters of this book. What I could do on the next call is like half the call could be wrapping up all the final topics of this Eat the Frog book, and then picking a book for the next week, the last half.
I think that covering a little bit more of the book next week and as kind of the transition week as we've been doing has been good. I think what the problem with waiting until next week to pick one is then probably that no one will have it until the following week, and now you're like 2 weeks into the month. I don't know if anyone had any ideas, but I got some books that are pretty cool that are also pretty short. Let me see if I can find this one that I have. While I'm trying to find it, one of the things I was going to say related to what Josh was saying is that you could end up getting to do the same activity. So like when Mallory's talking about like her shows, or maybe it's something on TV, there's a big difference between saying, oh, I'm completely bored, so I'm going to watch reruns of this show for no apparent reason, versus being like, is this it? No. Versus being like, I actually it was probably a year ago. I kind of had in my head, I'm like, we haven't done anything with like all of my cousins in a really long time. Like, what is something that we can do? So I thought about it and I said, well, we could watch home videos. And so we actually had all my cousins and my aunts and uncles over to my parents' house, and went downstairs on the big TV and at the bar and stuff. We watched home videos from, summers down the Cape when we were really little, from all the different birthday parties when we were all little kids and stuff. And we just had an absolute blast. So we were watching TV, but it was only because we had the outcome of, let's have a fun time with our entire family. What are some of the things that we can do that are also cost effective? Also have everyone be involved and experience it. And that was the thing I came up with, which is to watch home movies together and share stories and do that stuff. So we ended up watching TV for 3 or 4 hours, but it was with a group of people, but the outcome came first. And then the actual function or the thing that we did to fulfill that outcome happened to be, watching TV, if that makes sense. But it was all having the outcome first. So let's see. This is a book I have. If we're interested in it, The 5 Levels of Attachment. Toltec Wisdom of the Modern World by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. That's one of that I have. That's one of his books. Cool thing about them is they have a good message, but they're also pretty short, like some of Brian's books. And the other one I have, which is also by him, is The Mastery of Self and A Toltec Guide to Personal Freedom. So those are 2 that I have that I'd put up as candidates. My third candidate is Logan, but we can't really read him. So
Who were those by?
They are by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.
Cool. I like the sounds of The Mastery of Self better. I mean, if I were to pick between the 2, I don't know if Josh has any preference, but no, yes, maybe.
Are you frozen?
He might be.
Yeah,
I say Mastery of Self. I don't know if Josh agrees or what, but
I think we can go with that one if you want.
Yeah.
They're both well, I've read the beginning of both of them, but I haven't got all the way through them. But yeah, they're both really good. Mastery of Self, the Guide to Personal Freedom, sounds cool to me. So
yeah, I think that's awesome because we all kind of look for different ways. What's our definition of freedom? What are different ways that we can master that definition of freedom in our own life? So that's cool. So what I'll plan to do is just wrap up with the final chapters of the Eat the Frog book in the beginning of next week's call, probably for the first half or first 3/4 of the call, and then we can kind of talk about the first part. Maybe you can talk about, Eric, the first part of what you've already read of The Mastery of Self, and we can kind of dive into that topic. So that sounds like a really good plan.
all right, guys. Live
See
the movie.
you next week. Live the movie. Peace.
See ya.